If you are curious about getting sober, but uncertain about what living a sober life would look like while working in the restaurant industry, then this episode is for you. Today, we are talking with Cliff Blauvelt, Denver restaurant owner, about his journey to sobriety, how it's impacted the success of his restaurant Bodega, and how he's built a team of like-minded people. Welcome to the No Hesitations podcast, the show where restaurant leaders learn tools, tactics, and habits from the world's greatest operators. I am your host, Kristen Marvin, with Solutions by Kristen. I've spent the last 2 decades in the restaurant industry and now partner with restaurant leaders to help them overcome burnout, increase retention, reignite their passion, and drive successful businesses. I also work directly with restaurant leaders through one-on-one coaching and group workshops to help them identify their blind spots, build their confidence, and overcome challenges in their business. If you're curious about learning more, visit my website at kristenmarvin.com/contact to book a 15-minute goal planning session. This podcast is sponsored by Schedulefly. Schedulefly provides a simple, web-based and app-based restaurant employee scheduling software backed by legendary customer service. If you are using pen, paper, Excel, or a fancy scheduling software with tons of bells and whistles that you don't use, Schedulefly is perfect for your business. When I was a regional manager handling 7 locations, Schedulefly was our go-to for scheduling. It's hands down the easiest platform that I've ever worked with. And their employee scheduling tool is awesome for shooting out mass messages about crucial restaurant updates. Visit schedulefly.com and mention the No Hesitations podcast to learn more and get 10% off. I hope you enjoy this episode. Cliff, we're so excited. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. Cannot wait to share your story. Welcome. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I'm ready for the holidays. I'm ready to see the family. I'm ready to move beyond them and kind of get to the new year and just keep moving and really it's hard because you have these goals set up, and then it really is funny with I think for me it was a lot of the your first of the year, or these are your new I'm sorry, I forgot what they're called. Your resolutions, that's it. So you have these resolutions, but it really is a good time to also for us to really take a look back at what we've done and then kind of re-establish that and move forward. And then I think with everybody, it's setting up your goals and getting your budgets and all those sort of your finances kind of in order, so that way things can just run smoother with the information. And this is our first year we get that actual historical data that we can look at. So we're good. We're in a good place, and we're excited to be doing really the ownership sort of things and focus on the business and really see what is working and, what we can do better.
Yeah, it's so exciting that you've gotten through your first year. You've had some great success, which we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. And now there's this maybe some nervousness and uncertainty around what does the next year look like. And it sounds like from the economy thing, you and I were just talking, sounds like there's some good signs headed your way, but there's also a ton of competition in the Denver market and continues to be. So excited to really, give the listeners more of an insight into who you are and why you're doing what you're doing at Bodega, and why they should come see you and have some delicious, delicious food for sure. So would you start by kind of taking the listeners through your journey to sobriety?
Sure. So I had, I wanted to go to culinary school after college, after high school. And that wasn't a real degree back then, being a chef. So what I kind of did is I just went through college, I just got in the restaurants and I started cooking on my own, learning on my own while I was doing this real job training in this university that, never really panned out because it's not what I wanted to do in the first place. But I found kitchens, and the thing with the kitchens was I wanted to be a cook, but I didn't realize the lifestyle behind it or any of that stuff. Because obviously back then we didn't have all this information at our fingertips, and you didn't really know what was going on. So once I kind of landed in the kitchens, at that point it really struck that these were my people. This is what I was meant to do. It was a little bit of this pirate atmosphere. We could just do what we want, drinking and hanging out and creating these relationships with like-minded individuals, from all sort of aspects of life. It's not, it's certainly not your upper echelon. It's not the lower echelon. It's just like you get people from everywhere where it's kind of a cool little melting pot of, people who are in college trying to get degrees in the front of the house. So all this sort of fun stuff. But with that being said, too, it's like you work hard, you play hard, and you kind of build these relationships. But that turns into your family, these restaurants, every single one. And I spent 10 years with the Secret Sauce with Steubens. So you spend 10 years with people, yeah, you really you develop these like serious, like long-term relationships, like family. Um, but with through that, there was a lot of this is what you do, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, when you get in trouble, your forgiveness is a shot. When you do well, you get a shot. When you anything, it was very surrounded by that. And it was also back in the years, if you think of like the early like koshan and stuff, where it was like pork, whiskey, those sort of things. And I was just those were the trends, and that's what we did. I had always kind of like party throughout high school and stuff like that too, to the point of like I put myself in some compromising situations there. I was going through I was doing the training for the peer support specialist training and for that certification for that. And during that, I was talking about how I was kind of like jumping around couch to couch or like living here, living there. And so somebody mentioned they're like, "Oh, well, you're homeless." And I was like, "Well, no, I wasn't homeless. Like I had a place." Like, "No, you didn't have a home. You were homeless." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess I was." But I didn't think about it because I just thought this was normal. For me, it was just like it kind of made these things that they seemed normal in my life, and that was just how I was living. Um, but to the extent of like, okay, when does that become unnormal, right? And I'd done really well with work. I had succeeded. I had moved up in the ranks, and I was successful, and I was successful while being drunk, and whatever else was mixed in there too at the times. So I was fortunate to where I could like make it all work together. Um, but as time goes on, you start losing friends, you start losing coworkers, whether it be to death or whether it be to you got to fire them. All those sort of things all kind of play a role in it, and you still just continue to move because it's what you're supposed to do. And you're supposed to work 70 hours, and you kind of wear this chip on your shoulder, like, no, we work, we play hard, we do these things, and you kind of think that you're a badass. And in a sense you are, but it's also like so destructive, and you don't realize the destructiveness, but you're like, no, I can get 2 hours of sleep and go to work. I can do all these things, and I can be successful, and I can be a chef, and I can be well known, and I can be all these things. But the reality is like you were just drinking to kind of mask the tiredness. You were just drinking as a crutch. You were drinking as a way to get through a lot of these other things in your life. And I discussed with my family a lot about Christmas and holidays, since we're kind of there too. They thought I was like not coming home because like I wanted to hang out and party with my friends, where I thought I wasn't going home because this was like I was I was just committed to my craft, and I wanted to be at work, and I wanted to do these things through the holidays, and that's what you were supposed to do back then. And that's what only maybe the chef got off and everybody else worked. So I just kind of thought of that was more of like what I was supposed to be doing in the long run. Like now looking back, I realized that maybe some of it was me not wanting to go home because I did have to pull it together and not drink as much. But again, I sort of just thought this was just how the world worked. And I thought that everybody drank, and I thought everybody did the same things that we did. But I had an opportunity like after 10 years with Stevens, where I moved to Aruba and opened a restaurant, and with an American couple. They were they didn't necessarily know, they had run a shack on the beach, and they were selling bratwurst, and they killed it. It was super popular. And then they wanted to get in a full service restaurant, where they kind of brought me on. So I was a general manager, chef. Moving to Aruba wasn't necessarily, it was also an escape. I just gotten like a DUI, and I found a way out of doing a lot of this stuff here. And that was also my third DUI, just so we can talk about that. But so that was my third DUI, which had jail time attached to it. Did that, had 2 years of probation, had a bunch of classes and those sort of stuff. But I kind of weaseled my way through the system, was able to get my jail time done really quick, moved to Aruba, had a private counselor, the drug testing and all that sort of stuff. I kind of weaseled through the system and kind of went unnoticed. And so whenever that whole thing, so Aruba, I moved on with a wife too, but it's a party place, and that's all you do again. and everybody who comes and visits just keeps coming. It's a very interesting vacation place where people are like, this is my 30th time here. They just keep coming back. They all have timeshares. They have this sort of stuff. So you get to develop these relationships with friends. Well, they become friends. And so again, it just continues to go on, right? So just like that. My wife and I at the time ended up, it wasn't healthy for anybody. It wasn't healthy for me. It wasn't healthy for her. It wasn't healthy with my relationship with alcohol. Things just kind of continue to progress. But after a while, we also realized that like maybe I couldn't get my permit because of this DUI that I had back in the United States. So after about 18 months, it just kind of like lost its luster. I'm like, this isn't fun. This is like, we should go home. Came home and really realized like I had 4 months left of this probation that I had from the DUI before I left. So I had to be sober, and I was forced into like not being able to drink. I was forced into, no, I wouldn't say forced. I had terms on this probation that I had to go along with. I wasn't forced. I was the idiot in this whole thing. But so whenever I came back, I, re-enrolled in the drug, like the UAs and all that sort of fun stuff that goes along with it. And I was like, okay, you have to get this figured out because you have 4 months. So I quit. I quit everything and then came back and was just like, this is what I'm doing. My wife ended up leaving me about the first week that we were back in the country. I was like living in my house that I bought, before we moved. But so I was like living in my house, but everything was in a shipping container. I had a blow-up mattress and a computer, and that was it, and basically a suitcase. I really struggled with FOMO is a real thing. I struggled with being alone. I think the issue with being alone was the reality was it was scary, and then having to be with your own thoughts and not being able to drink and not being able to do drugs and not be able to. So I was forced to basically sit in my my house for 4 months. Eventually my stuff came from Aruba, so like I got some more comforts of trying to like create a home. But again, it was without my wife at that point. It was ex-wife. There was just a lot of other things when I started a job. I was the culinary director for the culinary creative group, so the Tap and Burger. And all I did is I just worked. I basically just like put my head down, just like worked. And that was like really my main focus to help get me through some of this. I ended up losing, like I got pretty healthy. I don't know if it was healthy. I ended up losing 100 pounds. Probably depression, probably not drinking, probably a lot of those sort of things that go along whenever you just have these drastic life changes, right? So, so it was hard. It was messy, and I was forced to be alone. I was forced to deal with a lot of things. I was forced to deal with the fact that, I'd probably ruined my marriage, or alcohol. My relationship with drugs and alcohol had led to a lot of things. And then it all kind of like, I don't know if like your moment of clarity. I've never really had like a rock bottom. Even being homeless, I didn't really have a rock bottom. I just kept going and kept going. But I think that I had this moment of, oh my gosh, everything that's ever bad that's happened to me, well, there's been a common denominator, or like, and it's booze. And it was easy to be able to stop and point the finger at that. And so after those 4 months of like self-reflection, work, growth, all that sort of fun stuff, forced growth, which isn't nearly as fun as like self-growth. It's like actually like trying to do the work to become better, but you're forced into that. But so I was able to like realize where the problem lied. But of course, now 4 months goes by, you're off probation, you probably start drinking again, right? So, and then and this sounds horrible because it is, but so I had 3 DUIs. I couldn't stop drinking and driving. I don't know why. I don't know why I never, like, whenever I was drunk, I was like, no, we're going to drink and drive, or it doesn't matter. Get in the car, we're going. But I remember at one point thinking about selling my car that I just purchased because that was going to stop me from getting a DUI. And I was like, and then it really hit me that like, this is where you live in your head, that you think selling a car is a better solution. And you're running 3 restaurants and building the 4th, and you think selling your car is a better solution than not drinking. So I just started dating somebody who had also just gone through a lot of her own personal growth, including she hadn't been drinking. So whenever our paths cross, of course, naturally you take two alcoholics, put them together, who are on and off, you start drinking, then you kind of start going down this other road. And at that point, she was around whenever I realized about this, like selling the car situation. And we both just came to the conclusion, we're like, well, what's more important right now? Is our relationship more important or is drinking more important? Because we can't have both. Um, and I came to the reality of, I didn't want to say I was an alcoholic. I didn't want to say any of these things. I didn't want these labels because they just sound scary, horrible. Also, I don't like admitting that I have weaknesses and that I can't take care of it or do it on my own. So I essentially, I had a live-in. Now at this point, she had moved in. I had a live-in partner, and we just stopped drinking together. And that was awesome to have that support. And then, just like built in there, you kind of have it. We went to some chow meetings. We went to AA meetings. We went to every meeting you can think of because we just wanted to see what it was like, where the support was, where the communities are, how to learn to like try and open up about this. Again, I really struggled with having a weakness or some sort of problem or issue with alcohol to the point where I came up with a way of saying like this is why I don't drink versus like I'm an alcoholic. It was like I just can't have a healthy relationship with alcohol, and I know that, so I choose not to. Now I don't care. Yeah, sure, I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, I can't drink like a normal adult, so I don't, and so I don't get to, and that's also fine. Um, but it took a long time to get to that piece as well, or to like have that much self-awareness and or peace and or to be able to give up and be like, yeah, I've got a problem with drugs and alcohol and I just can't do them. I mean, I quit smoking like two or three times during all this, and that was super hard too. But while you're kind of like going through everything, there's just all these other struggles, and everything is like a struggle. And I never thought I was gonna have fun again. I thought my life was over. I thought drinking was like a personality trait and that everybody expected me to be drunk and that I was always this wild, crazy, fun human who honestly like didn't give a shit about anybody else. I was I was drinking to be something that I thought I had to be versus learning how to be who I was and like being accepting of who I was as an actual like really like nice, kind, caring, loving person. And I was trying to be this like badass that I'm not. But I thought that that's who I was, and that was at least 25 years of my life of like drinking to be someone that I thought was cool or somebody that I thought people liked or something else before I finally got to the point of like, no, this is okay. But that all really, it doesn't happen overnight. It was super hard and it sucked. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I went through 7 months of like thinking again where I was like never going to have fun. That
Yeah.
fun was over. I was never going to have fun. That was it. Like, it was just like, no, you just have to learn how to live a boring life.
It's it's interesting. I'm resonating with so many things that you're saying right now about changing your relationship to alcohol, really understanding why it's a part of your life in the first place and thinking that it is really a part of who you are. It's not who you are, it's what you do, right? And it takes some time to
Yeah.
separate that. But when you stop drinking, you have to figure out how to fill that void in that time. And
Yeah.
boredom is like apparent everywhere. How did you, I mean, I can't imagine being in your home for 4 months with your mattress and your computer before your stuff showed up and you actually had something to be hands-on to do to fill some time. How did you overcome that boredom?
Well, I think the reality was like I had to get rid of this, like through this, like end of this fulfilling the probation aspect. And so I knew that I had to do it. It wasn't a matter of like, well, you can screw this up because if I screwed it up, I was going to jail for a year. So I had like that fear of, because jail sucks and it's not fun. And like the idea of a year in jail is like the furthest thing I've ever like wanted to do in my entire life. I would probably run out of this country, never ever come back. It was just the fear of that alone kind of kept me out of that. But um it's hard because it's like all of your friendships in the restaurants like that's what they're doing is they're going to the bars, so you can't you kind of lose those friendships because you can't go to the bar. Or I just didn't trust myself to go to the bar, and it just didn't seem like a place I needed to be anyway. But so it was really tough to have to like, I was like forced to sit and be quiet and like deal with a lot of especially with like going through the divorce as well. So I had plenty of really negative things to just work through and kind of figure out. So I just kind of focused more in on that, like, what was, why was I here? What did I do? What did I, how did I deserve this? So I kind of like, went through the guilt phase at first. Um, but then I really started getting like comfortable with being alone, which I had never been alone because like I've kind of been in relationships for most of my adult like life. Um, so it was just a learning how to be alone. But then, yeah, what do you do? So it is a lot of, I was fortunate I just started a new job. So I really just dove into the job. But again, we're taking like one addiction for another, right? So you're just kind of like, okay, this is what I do. And this is actually what my current wife did too, is she turned drinking into cardio. So she does cardio. That's one of her things that she does. But also now that we're beyond that hump, you kind of realize like these were things that we were doing for also for ourselves and for our self-help and for our self-love and that sort of stuff. There was started, you go through those first like 3 months of like ups and downs with attitude, energy. You get to the third month and you're like, I'm doing so great. Your body like lies to you. You're doing so great. You should probably have a drink. You should probably reward yourself. You should probably. And so I've probably been going through these like, and I've also here's another the truth is I've been trying to be sober for about 20 years, I can say, on and off of like cool, not drinking. 6 months is the longest I made. Then I started drinking again. But it is that this is what my friends do. This is what I do. So Chow was helpful. Being able to see that there were like-minded people or like-minded individuals trying to find a way to also help others and like explain my story was good. And I think being able to get like the word out, I've done some consulting, and during those consulting, I've made some really strong friendships with people that have quit drinking since. So being able to tell this story, and then, but I think the biggest thing is like really, it's like, what can I do to continue like making myself better? And then some of that was just like starting like looking more into leadership, looking more into leadership books, looking more into personal growth, like all these other things. Hobbies though, like I started snowboarding at 40. Like I've lived here for 30 years. I was just too hungover to ever want to go.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, I started like snowboarding. I started playing golf again. I started like the things that became less important because alcohol was more important and alcohol was really
Mhm.
running things. I went back to, and then I really realized I'm like, oh my God, I love snowboarding. Like I can go out by myself. I can do my own thing. I can be happy. I can have this time alone. But it's really, really hard to get there. Like that part was, it just seemed endless to like get to this point of like where you're just okay being.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? When you drink for so long and it fills so much of your time and it is your primary hobby. That's how it was for us. You
Yeah.
have to start really learning what you enjoy doing all over again. And that takes time and trial and error, right?
Yeah. And like, fortunately, like cooking was always been something I've loved to do. So to be able to like, and I also, I really like to work. I, I just feel like it just makes me a better person. It like, I just like it. I like working. I like being a leader. I like cooking. I like being a chef. I like helping other people. I like all those things. So, being able to continue on that path and be able to do those things that I love, like I've never, people are like, oh, do you cook at home? I'm like, yeah, I cook at home all the time because I love cooking. Like, does my wife cook? No, I would never, like, I cook. Because I love it. So I'm fortunate, but like, I worry about that and wonder about that with others though. If you don't have that passion, if you don't have that, that, or like trying to find like the community too, like that's one I struggle with, so just nowadays, it's like, what is my community? And like, I'm fortunate I have my wife. A lot of people don't have that. They don't have their partner. They don't have those sort of things. So it is that trying to figure out, like, I've think, I'm just working with some people on my staff, and it's like, how do I get them to find that community outside of work too? Because like, yeah, we work together, and yeah, we're creating something bigger, but it's still they go home to their house, and they've got to deal with those things, and they have to be alone. And you can, how many times somebody says like, "Oh, it gets better," you're like, don't say that. Like, just
Yeah.
don't say it. I don't ever want. No, it doesn't. It's never going to get
Yeah.
better. And like,
Right.
but it does.
Yeah.
But like, I can't tell anybody that.
Yeah.
Um,
What was it like for you? to go back to work when you were sober? Because there is that culture, right? That everybody hangs out together. Sometimes you
Yeah.
drink during work, right?
Yeah.
Or you go out, you always go out after work together. And for me in a leadership position, it was a little easier for me to separate myself and say, I'm not going to go. But there were moments where I could never imagine working in the restaurant industry and not drinking.
Right.
And what was that like for you to go back into work and be sober and talk about it? Were there some nerves there?
Yeah, and so I was fortunate where I had come on to Tappenberger. They had a chef who was doing some consulting. He is 10 years sober. I don't know if he ever wants me to say his name or not, but he was 10 years sober, so I got to kind of work directly with him for a little bit. And that was a good one to just have like immediately. And also starting in a new restaurant where say they didn't know who I was. They didn't know Drunk Cliff, or who I thought I was. So it was easier that way to like be completely removed from people that already have these expectations or who know who you are, or these like, no, that's just Cliff. This is what he does. He drinks, he parties, he's fun. He's wild. He's those things. But so I got to start somewhere different and just be like, no, this is who I am. But going home, so that's the thing though, right? It's like when you're done with work at 5, because and the culinary director position was more of a kind of a 9 to 5, and then wherever needed throughout the day sort of role. So like some days you're done at 3, right? And you go home, but then that's where it's like hard, right? Because then you have to go home and be by yourself. Whereas usually you're off at 3 and there's somebody at the bar you can go sit and drink with. Um, Not having access to that or not being able to do that certainly made me also understand in the leadership role of this is really what you should be doing, not, but also like I'm single now, right? Because my wife had left me. I'm trying to like find people to talk to date women, whomever may be, to like have some sort of relationships with, or, just like learn how to date or whatever I was trying to figure out at the time. But a lot of that's also surrounded by booze.
Yeah.
If you're like going out on a date with somebody and being sober is like one of the scariest things in the world, or was. Trying to kiss somebody sober, like trying to like hold someone's hand, like any of those sort of intimacy things within dating, within a partner sober was super scary. So a lot of it really turned into like first, which became exciting though, because then I was like really relearning how to live. Even though I didn't know that that's what I was doing, and I thought I was just torturing myself, honestly. But so I was fortunate enough to where I could start sober and be with sober people. But then I jumped out of that because 4 months after, then I started drinking with the staff again, and all those sort of things started happening. And then I could see the disconnect there too, or the connect that wasn't the good connect. It was oh yeah, this guy is fun. He likes to party. Oh yeah, this guy, So then having to like stop all that again, really kind of establish those. Again, you think people care more than you do. Like they don't care if you drink or not. I'm the one who has the issue with it, and I was the one who had to like figure out how to deal with that because yeah, the staff thought it was fun whenever I drank for the month with them, but like they didn't care whenever I stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the moment for you where you decided I'm going to lean into this and really focus on being sober?
Honestly, it was kind of it was the moment with like my partner and us realizing that things were just messy. And then with the driving in the car situation, that's where I was like, what are you doing? Like, this seems like it's taking over things in your life. And again, it was that back to that, like anytime I've ever been in trouble with like the law, or anytime I've ever gone to jail, or anytime any of these things have happened, it was all alcohol. So once I could like realize that, that's when it was like, well, why don't you just try and stop and just see what happens? Like I got sober for 4 months, really got healthy, started like good habits, started meditating, started finding other things to kind of like enrich my life. And then went back to the bad. And then that's like the second, whenever I went back to the bad, I was getting drunker way faster. I was blacking out two or three drinks.
You go right back to where you were drinking level wise.
Dude, it's like crazy. I like
Yeah.
went back and it was like twice as bad, like three
Yeah.
times as bad.
Yeah.
And every time I've gone back, I've now noticed that like you go back and it hits you even harder to the point of yeah, I mean, I was definitely blacking out. And it just I was just getting sloppy and I just realized I'm like, this isn't who I want to be. So I just again, I've been fighting with sobriety for 20 years. So I think I finally, and with a partner that was actually very willing, understanding, and also had her own issues. We like the same things, which wasn't great because, you go out and you drink, and then the next thing you know, it's like wherever that leads you down the road that evening. And we also were very jealous of each other. We're like, if she had a shot, I would have to have a shot,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like, so it really had the potential to be very destructive. We were able to realize that like what was more important, like our relationship or drinking, and that's kind of where we pulled together and decided like, okay, let's stop. But it took about 7 months beyond that to really realize that like, again, I thought I was never gonna have fun, all these things, but then one day it just like clicked, and I was like, holy shit, like you're actually like living life, like you're creating memories, you're making memories, you're going to remember these things. um, Everything became a lot more worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
Everything became less muddy. Everything became easier. And that's when it really stuck. And I was like, I'm never going to do that again. Like, I can't, like, I can't go back to that because it was too hard. Like, everything was hard. Like, being hungover, like, the shame overs, like, what did I do? If you like looking back on all this, like, waking up and like needing a shot just to kind of get moving and to get through, or a shower beer, or whatever excuse you had for these things. Um, but it all kind of made sense, but it just took a lot of time away from it, and it took a lot of time of learning how to deal with these feelings that I now have, because that's the thing that sucks too, is all of a sudden these things that you've been putting away with drugs and alcohol or whatever it may be are now there. And you've got to somehow face them, and like it's hard because like it would be easier just to drink and let that go away, but it's still going to come back. So we were just really, really lucky that we both had just kind of, it was to the point where we just had enough.
Yeah. And tell me about from that moment, where did Bodega come from? Where did that thought come from? When did you realize, like, okay, I can open my own business now?
So I've been fortunate where I got to work with like a lot of like really successful operators. Um, you know, and and I've been in cooking in Denver for over 20 years. So it's like you get to see all, I came up way back in the day with, with like Matt Selby and those guys, and like getting to see that group of chefs, and then see the younger group of chefs. And you know you get to learn a lot, and you get to see a lot, and you get to see how people operate and how they do things, and then you get to see the good and you get to see the bad. And one of the things I like really realize is that like, as having just being a single owner, you can you have control to do whatever you want, right? um I saw a lot of successful wellness programs that people were trying to, Secret Sauce was kind of in the leading of the pack of this, like sober week. Now it's called Healthy Living Week. And like being able to see some of these other really cool aspects that you can do beyond, if you're successful and if you can afford it and if you can do all these other things, because none of that stuff is cheap. Like if you're juicing, that all costs money. But so I got to see the good and the bad behind it, but I got to see where like actual funds, like from fundraisers can go, um, and where they should go and all those sort of things. So you kind of get to learn those things. And I was just like, all right, I've gotten to see how to run this the way that I would want to run it. And I had people that, one of the things that people say is like, well, you'll understand when you have your own business. People say that to you a lot, right? And I was just like, no, I don't think I will. Like I'm gonna do it my way, and it's going to work. And I was ballsy enough to think that that was actually true. But with that being said, is like I really wanted to care, because like one thing I've learned throughout my entire like leadership with past chefs, with all the good people that you worked for, is like the development of the staff and the development of the team, bringing people along with you, getting people, like how do you motivate people, getting people motivated, and how do you keep them there with these jobs. And even if it is, maybe not this ultimate fine dining chef job that they want, but you can still like get them motivated and get them into this job and like have them, you know, active and just, being a part of the team. And that's where I like really realized that I had something that was kind of cool, that people liked me, and people like wanted to follow me. And so with that too, I was like, okay, well, we all know we have all these problems. We all have seen these, the Anthony Bourdains, the chefs die, all these things. I was like, what if we just try and do it a little bit differently? It doesn't have to be, yeah, there's profit involved. Yeah, you have to be able to pay your bills, and yeah, you have to make money. And yeah, if you want to grow, all those things are super important too. But what I realized is like a one sole owner, I don't have to split profits with anybody. I don't have investors. I don't have to pay off anybody else. I don't have any of these other things. The loans I have or loans that I got, everything is on me. But with that being said, I can take some of that, since I'm not splitting it 50-50 with another owner, I can put some of this money back into this team and continue to create just a better, healthier environment that people really care about and that people really do. Because how many people are like, oh, we care so much. Like it's in every single restaurant works for. It's in their mission statement about how much they care for their staff. Whether or not they do is on them. It's on paper, but it's almost like you have to say that now. Like, no, we care. But do you really? Like I don't know if you do. I wanted to make sure that people could tell that I actually cared.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I wanted to do something that wasn't really out there. And like, it's not that it isn't out there. There's plenty of places that also do it well. Yeah, there's tons of places that do it well. I just wanted to bring something, but the booze thing was a big one for me because it's me and my wife, Kara, the partner. She's also, we've gone on this path together, and it was just like, how can we bring this? How can we get people jobs that aren't happy with where they are, or alcohol is a problem, or it's a trigger, or it's there, or all these things. So that was a big one for us. And that was a big thing with like becoming a certified peer support specialist. So I really wanted to walk the walk, talk the talk. If people had problems, we could talk to them. Hey, this is where you need to go. Let me get you these right places. Just having the actual experience and knowledge of what happens throughout with mental health is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure like I knew what I was talking about, or I understood what people were saying whenever they have these, like whatever it may be, if disorders or whatnot, just that we had a home for people. And it's kind of funny. Like, I mean, I think like 10 out of 15 of our staff like don't drink right now.
How
And
did you find those people?
some of them found me. They've heard through the grapevine. Whenever we put out like Craigslist or any ads, Indeed, whatever, we proudly say that we're a recovery friendly work environment. I think that's a big one. I've had a lot of people reach out being like, hey, I'm struggling at this current job. If you have a position, I'd love, like, I want to be in the restaurants. I just don't know where to find a home. So some of that, also being in the restaurant for so long and everybody knowing me as this like one human being that drank and partied, but still like, and I've always been a reasonable person. Like I'm not a yeller, I'm not a screamer. I don't throw stuff. I don't treat people poorly. I always have treated people with respect and that sort of stuff. So that also helps to like bring staff in because they know how you respond to things.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of them was, they heard through the grapevine, they had friends. I don't hesitate to put it up if we're hiring, like put things up on Chow. We don't have a problem with hiring, which is also, I think, kind of speaks for itself as to what we're doing. Because, everyone's like, well, are you short staffed? I'm like, no, we're overstaffed. Are you having a problem finding people? I'm like, no, we're not. And like, we're paying a little bit more than most. And like, we are offering really good benefits, just because it is part of the deal. Like, if you really do care, you really should do those things. So it was just, I think it all is kind of proofs in the pudding, really. And that's where people see it.
Yeah, and you've mentioned Chow a couple times, and I want to let the listeners know. I'll put in resources at the just in the description of the episode here. But Chow is a beautiful organization. I'm lucky to be on the board, but they offer mental health and substance abuse resources for the hospitality industry. So you can go to chowco.org for resources. They have free meetings every single day. They have women's meetings, men's meetings, mixed meetings, in Zoom or on Zoom and in person, but they offer a tremendous amount of resources. Cliff, I want to get back to something that is kind of clicking for me right now. It sounds like, do you think that your retention of your employees is tied to this healthy lifestyle?
I think it helps. I do think that having alcohol in the workplace, as far as, and I know a lot of places are moving away from it, and this was, a lot of just my experience in the past, but it does make things messier. It does, create other issues. It does, even to the point of like people having drinks somewhere else and coming back to work, all those sort of things. So we just kind of eliminated it. We're just like, it isn't part of our culture. It isn't what we do. Even like our parties and stuff, we don't provide alcohol. And like, I don't care if people drink. And also, like we've done, other like offsite events. And if like somebody wants a beer, they can have a beer. I don't care. That's not really the issue. It's just more of it was just almost a way of like a, a different lifestyle. And so like our hours are 8 to 3 too. So we have people that don't drink, also don't want to work late. And that was a big thing is like, originally our hours were going to be 8 to 8 because I didn't want to work past 8. And I don't want to ask anybody to do anything that I don't want to do. So I was like, I don't want to be open until past 8 o'clock at night. So I'm not going to. And I think people like understand that too. Like, I'm not going to ask you to do things like I would never do. Um, but I do think that we've simplified, like, we have like really good benefits. Like everybody, if you're full time, we pay for half of your insurance. Um, access to the mental health. We pay for all of your vision and dental. So like we've just like keep adding these things up onto, and then basically kind of ball it into our wellness program. But I think that alone for especially cooks is like a big one to have access to all these. We, like I said, again, we pay more than most, and it's just like we also, it's fun. Like I just want people to have fun. Like I want people to come to work. The joke was like, I built the restaurant to do hood rat shit in the kitchen with my friends. Like that was the joke. And it was a reality. Like that's what I want. I want to build a kitchen where my friends can come in, we can all cook, have fun. It's a collaborative kitchen. Everybody can do whatever they want. They have a say. I mean, within reason, but we all work on the same things. If somebody brings a project or an idea for a sandwich, we all will sit down and work on it. We'll talk about it 10 different ways. Whether we go back to the original, it could be, but the environment itself is everybody's involved. And I think that also means a lot too when it comes to cooking and food versus this hierarchy of chefs who probably are drunk and not working as hard. And then you have these line cooks that are busting their ass. Again, I know the culture is changing and it's really not all like that anymore. But we just offer like a really cool place that people can come do their thing, go home, have a life. Because I think that's another one is, even my managers, they only work 45 hours.
Nice.
I don't need anybody. You're after 45 hours, like your quality of work goes down, your quality of life goes down. And it's like I'm more of a quality versus quantity. If you can come in and do this job in 40 hours, then work 40. If
Mm-hmm.
you're going to do it in 45, great. But like beyond that, like if you're here for 50 hours, like what are you doing? Like
Yeah.
there's nothing here to do that you should be here for that long. Um, but that's a big one too, is like I think having be able to offer that, like a lot of our cooks are on like 410s. So they have 3 days off, they can go do whatever they want. And then I mean being home at 4 o'clock to like cook dinner with your partner is pretty massive.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like the environment that you've created inside Bodega is one of collaboration, engagement. People are present, they're having fun. I mean, it definitely sounds like something I want to be a part of from a
Like
guest experience.
a big one is like a big goal is like empowering people, right? So if I can get these line cooks to go to their next jobs and be sous chefs, that's what I want. If I get the sous chefs to go to their next jobs and be executive chefs, like that's what I want. If I can get everybody to know how to do everything inside of this restaurant, they're probably not going to call me at, you know, 5 in the morning when they can't figure something out because they probably already have this answer. So it helps my life by giving them the tools. But then it's like they all get to learn new stuff. Like, you know, we are in the process of, there is some growth, and I get to take, drawings to the line cooks and be like, hey, this is what this looks like. Hey, this is what financing looks like whenever you need to get there. Hey, this is what this is. So like it's very open. I don't keep like we run open book like management. We don't Everything is extremely transparent because also that builds trust, right? Like if I can get you guys to like see exactly what I'm doing, know that I'm not back here sneaking any like tips or whatever this may be, and be like, no, this is everything. I think that makes a big difference. We all see how like a lot of these other places run. So I think with that too is like there is this, it's bigger. Like we want people to grow. Like we're going to start doing the apprenticeship program with the CRA. So we've got a young girl who's been with us for a while. Also doesn't drink. She's been like, oh, she's about to be a year sober, which is pretty rad. But she's like trying to like figure out what she wants to do. And we're like, hey, like let's give you in this management training program, because at least the management that you'll learn you can take with you no matter where you go.
Mm-hmm.
These like leadership skills, you'll be able to like a lot of the restaurant skills kind of are transferable. Um, obviously depending on what the word to, but so that's a big one for us is like we're just really trying to give people the skills and the tools to like continue to grow and not just be stagnant clock punchers. And sure, everybody's got some of those too, and everybody needs that. It's fine. But beyond that, we really like want to give people, just
Yeah.
some more stuff out there than just work.
One more question for you, and then I'll let
Yeah.
you plug and let everybody know where they can find you. And um, what's looking back now on your sobriety journey, how has being sober really led to the success of your restaurant and your life?
I mean, I think the easiest thing to think about is just like how less messy it is. You have just being like clear headed and being able to make like good decisions based on actual like rational thought than drunk emotions are a big one. But it really helps you kind of settle into like what you want to do and focus in on what you want to do and get that those like just clear headed. You can just like really, but that's if you're driven and that's what you want to do and if that's the goal you want to take. But for me it was like I want to help people. How can I do that? Well, you can open a restaurant. Well, how does that help people? It doesn't really too much. It gives some people some jobs, but then beyond that, that was the, hey, what can we do to like really continue to grow, continue to be of service? And I know with like AA, that's a big one. Is like this continued like service amongst what they do. And about it, I've only been to a couple of meetings, so I don't really know too much about it to speak on it. But I think it is important to be able to like help others and like be able to like continue to tell your story because I have a couple of people I know quit drinking because of my story, and that alone like is bigger. And that's what I like. We'll be richer if we can change lives that way than we will be if we have 1,000 bodegas.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome. Well,
yeah,
I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. It's
thank you.
powerful and relatable, and we need more of that in the world for sure.
It's
Well,
been fun. It's been wild. It's been hard, but it's been fun. And like honestly, where I'm at now in life, I would never change anything that I went through to get here. And I'm so happy that I'm where I am, and that like I can continue on this way without just be able to give back without having to drink and without and like knowing that like this is I'm living like a fulfilled life finally, which is really cool.
yeah, and
Yeah,
that's great. And you're providing a wonderful environment for
I'm
people to be
trying.
successful as well. So kudos to you. Keep up the great work.
We're
That's great.
trying. Thank you.
So where can we find Bodega?
Right now, so we are in our second year, just started our second year, but we are located over in the Sunnyside neighborhood of the north side of Denver. It's on 30th and Clay, so it's almost 30th and Federal, right across the street from Lever's Locavore. So it is like Highlands, Berkeley, Sunnyside kind of area. We are working on, like I said, lease negotiations for a second location right now. That's going to be more over in the Rhino Cole neighborhood, but I live in Cole. Our big thing is we want to feed people in our neighborhood and we want to feed people in neighborhoods and like kind of give the community things that they don't have to beyond just a for-profit sort of restaurant. Like we really want to we enjoy being a part of the company and or a part of the community and then trying to bring that more in. So we're excited to feed people kind of in our neighborhood and continue to grow and those sort of things. And honestly, right now, there really is no end goal. It is just kind of keep going with what the world's giving us. And we've been very, very fortunate. I say lucky, but I know like we've all worked our tails off to really get there. But it's pretty unbelievable to see where we are versus, where I was 10, 15 years ago. It's good. We're happy.
Yeah. Well,
Happy.
we're gonna be out there in a couple of weeks, so we're gonna
Good.
come see you for sure.
Cool.
And just it's been so exciting to follow your journey in the first year and see all the awards and accolades and shout outs that you've gotten, my friend. So
It's
kudos
been
to you.
wild. That was like turning in, there's talks at the airport, there's all these other things, but then everybody like wants you to like build these press kind of just put everything together that you've gotten all year. And so like this year we did 24 different like press releases on us. And we don't pay for any marketing, we don't pay for any of that stuff. The only Kara, my partner, she does our Instagram, and that's the only thing that we use to get
That's
out to
great.
the people.
I love
So
it. Well, it's working organically, which is
it's
beautiful.
crazy to think. A lot of people spend a lot of money to get their name out there. It just worked. So yeah, we're very, very fortunate.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
we will I'd love to have you back on the show soon, but
Cool.
we will see you very soon in Denver, my
Thanks.
friend. All
Yeah.
right. All right, everybody, subscribe and listen each week wherever you find your podcasts. And be sure to follow me, Kristen-Marvin on LinkedIn, and subscribe to the Solutions by Kristen newsletter for more restaurant leadership tips. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.